Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grasitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaita Vrtavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavat Gite Bhavadveshinim. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maruta Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramo Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthitatadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yoginaha Yasyantanna vidussura suraganaha devaya tasmai namaha. Welcome to the weekend Bhagavad Gita classes. We are in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We discussed the verse number 18, which gives the central idea of this chapter, where Lord Krishna said, Karmani akarmayah pashet. One who sees the actionless self in and through the actions. Actions are taking place, and in and through all those actions, the self is actionless. Who by his very presence blesses all the actions, enlivens this body-mind sense complex, blesses all the actions, but does not participate, is just a nimitta, an instrument. Similarly, the presence, the conscious presence, that is the nature of the self. The reason why this is pointed out is that the fact that there is no action is that there is no movement, there is no vikara, there is no change, there is no modification, which means the self is changeless, which means it is imperishable, it is permanent, it is eternal. Meaning that not limited by the limitation of time, nor therefore limited by place, not limited by anything. Therefore, the self, the Atma, is consciousness limitless. And therefore, it is complete. Self is limitless, complete endeavor, ever of the nature of wholeness, ananda or happiness, vimokṣhyase. Knowing the self, one discovers that one is limitless, whole, complete, free from all lack, all want, which is exactly what one is seeking in one's life. So this knowledge enables me to discover that I am what it is that I have been seeking all along. Sabuddhiman manusheshu. This knowledge makes a person really intelligent in the right sense of the word. So yuktaha, he is a yogi, he is a person having complete self-mastery and therefore mastery of everything else. Krishna karma-krit, he has done what all needs to be done in life. He has a sense of complete fulfillment about life. Since this is a result of knowing the self, therefore Lord Krishna talks about the self is actionless. And then in a number of verses, the wise person who knows the self is actionless, his conduct was described. It is likely that this wise person is very active or may perform minimum action. Minimum action merely sustain the body, that's all he may do, or that also he may not do. So however the outer conduct is, the inward wisdom, the fullness is the same. And in the verse 24, the vision of the wise person was described in terms of yajñā. Lord Krishna calls it, or Bhashyakara calls it, jnāna-yajña. Jnānam eva yajñā. Where knowledge itself is yajña. Yajña means a sacrificial ritual. When something is offered. So what is jnāna-yajña? A yajña or a sacrificial ritual in the form of knowledge is that where ignorance is offered. And ignorance brings about a lot of consequences in terms of identification with the body, mind, sense complex. And there were many complexes which are a source of sorrow in our life, which is called samsara. So this vision of a wise person, and what is that vision? Seeing the self as actionless, seeing the self as the self of all, Atma eva, all of this is Atma alone, or Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, all this is Brahman. So the vision of the wise person that what is Brahman. Because he knows the identity of the self and Brahman. That vision is described in the context or in the format of a yajña. Yajña is a traditional fire ritual in which the fire is kindled, the devatā, the deity is invoked, ahuti offering is made, with recital of appropriate mantras. So all these different accessories which make it possible to accomplish the act of yajña, all of these are described as nothing but Brahman. The vision of the wise person, Brahmarpanam, Arpanam. Arpyate, that with which something is offered. In case of yajña, it is a ladle, a wooden spoon with which you take the material and offer it to fire. That ladle is Brahman. Brahma havihi the fire in which offering is made, that also is Brahman in the perception of the wise person. Brahmarpanam, Brahma havihi. That havish, the material that is offered, also is Brahman. Brahmaṇo, where the offering takes place, that fire also is Brahman. Brahmaṇa-hutam, the one who offers, also is Brahman. Hutam, the whole act of offering also is Brahman. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam. And the outcome of this whole thing also is Brahman. The result, the karma phala. Brahma karma samadhina. Thus, one who sees, who is centered upon, rooted in the vision of Brahman while performing any action. So Vashyakara explains that by equating Brahma-jnanam, the knowledge of Brahman, or the vision of the wise person, by equating that with yajña, this vision or the jnanam, the knowledge is extolled. Well, yajña is the most auspicious thing. And therefore, when something is compared to yajña, they also gain the same auspiciousness, exaltedness. So the verse 24 describes the vision of the wise person as jnāna-yajña. In subsequent verses then, Lord Krishna described a number of other yajñas, or you can call spiritual practices, which may not be traditionally called yajña, which Lord Krishna nevertheless calls yajña, because in a traditional yajña or the sacrificial ritual, the most important aspect is the offering, dravya-tyaga, offering the material, making offering into fire. That is the central aspect of a yajña. And therefore Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that any action that is performed with the spirit of offering to Devata or offering to Ishvara can be called yajña. Which means that by definition of Lord Krishna, you can perform any action. Yat karoshi, whatever it is that you do. Yat ashnasi, what you eat. Yat juhoshi, what you offer in the fire. Yat dadasi, whatever charity you give. Yat tapasyasi, whatever austerity you perform. Tat kurush, all of them can be performed in the spirit of yajña, meaning as an offering to the Lord, worshipful offering to the Lord. So an action performed in the spirit of worshipful offering is called yajña. In that spirit, Lord Krishna described a number of spiritual practices. Devam eva pare yajñam yoginah paripasate. Lord Krishna said there are many yogis, mumokshus, seekers, aspirants, who choose to perform the Deva yajña, the traditional yajña, where Devata is invoked and offering is made to Devata, where Devata is worshipped. There are some who choose to perform Deva yajña as a spiritual practice. What is the benefit of performing an action in the spirit of yajña or worshipful offering or a worshipful contribution is antahkarana shuddhi, purification of the mind. Where we can say that the self-centeredness is the primary impurity in the mind, which is the immediate product of self-ignorance. Ignorance about myself causes me to take what is non-self to be the self. Thus the body-mind sense complex, which is really anatma or non-self, is habitually taken to be the self. Which creates in me this complex is that I am as good, or I am equal to the body, equal to the sense organs, equal to the mind, equal to the intellect. The self, the limitless self, is equated to this, placed in the same locus. When I say Purushoham, I am a man, I am a woman, that means that I am equating I am with man, woman, which is body. I am happy, I am unhappy, it means I am, which is a self, is equated to happy and unhappy, which is the disposition of mind. I am successful, I am a failure. Again, I am is equated to successful, failure, which are the notions in the buddhi intellect. So this is called ego, the ahankara, which is one. It's called jñātvā, the samsari, the transmigrating soul who entertains countless complexes, where each complex becomes the source of his sense of limitedness, desires, actions, conflicts. So this ego or sense of limitedness creates in me a sense of insecurity, because I am limited, therefore I feel that I am always subject to being overrun by others, overwhelmed by others, attacked by others. So ego suffers from a sense of insecurity in many ways. Death may take over me, insult may take over me, failure may take over me. So fear of many things. Fear of death, fear of failure, fear of humiliation, fear of insult, etc. And therefore the ego thinks that I must protect myself. And therefore this whole attitude arising from a sense of smallness, insecurity, where I am for myself, I have to fend for myself, is the attitude of self-centeredness, where I come first. And this self-centered in turn, we have explained this earlier, causes the raga and dvesha, attachment or aversion, or kama, krodha, lobha. All these impulses are the products of insecurity. All these are called impurities. And therefore, to purify the mind, we deliberately choose to maintain the attitude which is opposed to self-centeredness, which is called selflessness, or it's called nishkama karma, a karma or action performed with the attitude of selflessness, attitude of offering, attitude of contribution. And that becomes yoga ideally when that contribution is made with the buddhi or the attitude of that I am offering to Ishvara. So Lord Krishna described many such actions where Deva yajñā or yajñā performed as a means of worship to Devata. The traditional yajñā is also one of them. And then Lord Krishna said, Shrotrādini indriyāni anyē sañyamāgnishu juhvati. Some people perform the yajñā of the nature of self-control, self-discipline, self-control, where indriya, the sense organs, are prevented from their natural activities, meaning organs of perception not allowed to perceive the respective objects. Organs of action are not allowed to perform various actions, restraining the sense organs. That's indriya agni. So, Sanyamagnishuch, the sanyama, the self-control, the self-discipline of the nature of restraining the indriyani, sense organs. Some people do this. This part of yoga is called pratyahara, withdrawal of all the sense organs. When Vedanta will call it uparati, withdrawal of the sense organs, inwardness of the mind. Shabdadin vishyananye indriyāgnishu-jihvati. Some people do not possess that level of self-control. So they do not stop the sense organs from performing their activities, but they at least exercise the control. The sense organs do not perform any unbecoming activity. That no adharmic action is performed or no adharmic bhoga or sense pleasure also is entertained at the level of sense organs. The level of organs of perception, I do not partake of any object of enjoyment which is not sanctioned by the scriptures. At the level of organs of action, I do not perform any action that is not sanctioned by the scriptures. So his sense organs are acting all right, but within the limit of that which is sanctioned by the scriptures. This also is yajñā, because something is offered, some sanyama, some self-control is there. Sarvān indriya karmāni prana karmāni chāpare atma sanyama yogāgnau jukvati jñāni. Some people go in farther than that. Sarvāni indriya karmāni, all the actions of the organs of perception, organs of action. Prana karmani, all the actions of the prana or the life force. Atma sanyama yogāgnau. In Yoga Shastra it's called sanyama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. The last three steps of dharana, the concentration, dhyanam, the meditation, samadhi, the absorption, called sanyama. Atma sanyama yogāgnau, that also is agni, of nature of yoga. Where this sanyama, self-control is exercised, so they are more advanced yogis, so they are also performing yajñā. Dravya-yajñā, tapo-yajñā, yoga-yajñā, tathāpare. More common people perform yajñā of the nature of offering wealth or offering money in charity. That is also an offering. Dravya-yajñā, tapo-yajñā. Some people who are devoted to tapas or austerities, where there is a deliberate effort of depriving the body and the sense organs of their normal needs, like fasting, etc. Yoga yajñā, those people devoted to the yoga, the Patanjali yoga or Hatha yoga. Swadhyaya, jnana-yajñasya, swadhyaya-yajñā, those people who are devoted to swadhyaya, recital of Vedas, or recital of the holy scriptures. Jnana-yajñasya, others are devoted to jnanam, deliberating about the meaning of the scriptures. All of them are offering themselves, their time, their energy. They could have done something else, so deprive themselves of any other things and devoted to this. All of these are also called yogis of one kind or the other, so different yajñas are being performed. Apane jukvati pranam. Then Lord Krishna said, some people perform simple pranayama called rechaka, puraka, kumbhaka. Apare niyataharaha pranam. And when most advanced yogis are able to control all the prana of the physiological functions. So these are some of the spiritual activities described by Lord Krishna. In the context of jnana-yajña, the ultimate yajña or the sacrifice that we should be performing ultimately is called yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo, where the ignorance is offered in the fire of knowledge. And by ignorance we mean the various notions created by ignorance, like I am karta, I am a doer, I am bhokta, I am an enjoyer, I am sukhi, I am happy, I am unhappy. All of these notions or complexes about I am of the self are created because of the identification of non-self in the fire of knowledge. I am Brahman, I am Brahman. So every time this notion comes up, you resolve it, replace it, displace it by I am Brahman. That is the highest yajña for the aspirants. Sarve pyete yajña-vidhā, and then any other activity also performed in the spirit of yajña can be called yajña. Sarve pyete yajña-vidhā yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo. Lord Krishna, all the aspirants who are yajña-vidhā, who have knowledge of these yajñas and who perform these yajñas, yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo. These various practices are called yajña because in each practice there is a spirit of yajña or self-offering in one measure or the other. Somewhere the offering is very large, in some the offering is small, in some the offering is middling. Survey all of them. Yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo. They remove or exhaust that karma-jān, exhaust their impurity by performing yajña. Meaning, by performing these practices in the spirit of yajña, in the spirit of offering to Ishvara, spirit of self-offering, all of them accomplish the purification of the mind in varying degrees. Whatever be the intensity of yajña, in that intensity they bring about the self-purification. But all of these do bring about the yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo. So that is how they are able to remove or eliminate their impurities. Then we come to verse 31, which is the last verse that we did in the last section. So let us read the verse 31. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo
yajñā-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo
yānti brahma sanātanam nāyaṁ loko styayajñasya kuto nyaḥ kuru-sattama. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo. Amrita-bhujo, those bhuja who partake of amrita, the ambrosia. What is ambrosia? Yajña-śhiṣhṭā. So whatever is left over after making the offering in a yajña is called amrita or nectar. Traditionally, while performing a yajña, for example, you may take, say, ghee in a container and make offerings into the fire. After the whole ritual is complete, whatever is left in that, sometimes that is also offered, but whatever material is left can be called the amrita or ambrosia or the nectar. In this case, these yogis are performing the yajña, the various kinds. And remember that earlier we talked about the panch mahayajñā. where every householder is expected to make five kinds of offerings every day. Brahma yajñā, by a recital of the Vedas, making offering to the sages or the rishis. Deva yajñā, by way of performing the rituals or act of worship to the devatas or Ishvara. Piṭru yajñā, by way of making offering to the departed souls. Guru yajñā, by way of making offering to the other needy members of the society. By way of welcoming them for giving them food, shelter, clothes, etc. Guru yajñā. And bhuta yajñā. As much as possible, fulfilling the needs of other creatures, the animals and living beings and plants and trees around ourselves, fulfilling their needs. Called pancha mahayajñā. They also should be included in the list of yajñas, by the way. And I am mentioning these because we are more familiar with them. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāmṛita-bhujo, the nectar that is left over after making all these offerings. So whatever is left is what belongs to us. That's what the person partakes of. Yajña-śhiṣhṭāmṛita muchyante sarva-kilbishaihi. The idea is that here is a person for whom the yajña is more important than his own personal needs. Meaning that fulfilling the needs of others. Who are those others? Whom he thinks that they are the contributors in his life. By whose support, by whose favor he is what he is and he continues to live the way he does. And therefore, out of a sense of gratitude, it makes offering to them to fulfill his debt. So, a person for whom that is more important than his own needs. That is called duty also. Duty also is like yajña. So that is called duty where the need of the one towards whom I am performing duty, the need of that person is more important than my need. So after doing what I am required to do for them, then what is left over is what I partake. Whatever time is left is for me. Whatever food is left is for me. Whatever energy is left is for me. It is spirit, where for this spiritual aspirant, yajña or offering is more important than his or her own needs. That's a spirit. Yānti brahma sanātanam. Lord Krishna said that these people attain the Brahman, the eternal Brahman. Not right away. But this spirit of yajña, as we said, brings about the purification of the mind. When needs of others are more important than my needs, that means that I am required to let go of my own needs in favor of fulfilling needs of others. See, this is called the spirit of yajña, and this is what is purifying. My mind, where my usual tendencies, my needs are first. And that's what gathers all kinds of ragadveshas and impurities. When needs of others are more important than, that is conducive to getting rid of ragadveshas. So immediate benefit is antahkarana shuddhi, purification of mind, in which there arises a desire for knowledge. So the result of the purification of mind is arising of the vividisha, jñāsa, the desire for self-knowledge. which then leads me to the Guru for fulfilling that desire and gaining the knowledge, which culminates into moksha. But once you started climbing that ladder or an escalator, of which yajñā is the first step, yānti brahma sanātanam. This very spirit of yajñā will ultimately lead you to Brahma, to the knowledge of the identity of the self with Brahman, which is the means of moksha. So that's how Lord Krishna also louder extolled this yajñā, the spirit of yajñā, and also said, nāyaṁ loko styayajñasya kuto nyaḥ kuru-sattama. Contrary-wise, Anvaya and Vyatireka. Anvaya, where there is yajñā present in our life. Vyatireka, no yajñā present. Meaning a person lives life of self-centeredness, which is what people do. Lord Krishna calls it for ayajña, in whose life there is no yajña at all, there is no spirit of offering. He is for himself. I and mine, that's all that matters. Nāyaṁ loko, see, Lord Krishna says that this world, this simple day-to-day happiness also is not there for this person. This world also has to offer some happiness. The world also can offer me happiness. The objects also can offer me happiness. But understand that merely having the objects of happiness is not enough. Even my experiencing the object of happiness also is not enough. I could be eating delicious food, I could be listening to my favorite music, I could be watching to my favorite show, and so on and so forth. I could be doing what I look upon as the objects of pleasure. There is no guarantee that I will necessarily gain pleasure out of that. Because along with the objects of pleasure, I also require a mind which is capable of enjoying that. Sometimes we forget that. People think that merely gathering the objects of pleasure is enough to make them happy. They do not realize that it is not enough that we have the means of happiness, but we should have the capacity to enjoy that happiness. And that is called the antahkarana-shuddhi. That is called the purity of mind. Meaning that even to enjoy these worldly pleasures, we require some purity of mind. A person who is in conflict, person who is overcome by impulses of anger, greed, whatever, that person cannot enjoy what is in front of that person. For me to enjoy what is in front of me, I require a disposition of mind, which can be also called antahkarana-shuddhi of some kind, which is what we gain by the spirit of yajña. So when the spirit of yajña is there in my life, there is proportionate amount of purification of mind and proportionate capacity you to enjoy the objects of the world. So we need not assume that just because we have plenty, more the merrier. Just because we have more, therefore we are merrier, there is no such equation. Equation is, the greater the capacity we have cultivated of enjoying even the worldly objects, to that extent there can be even the worldly pleasure in our life. So Lord Krishna says that the spirit of yajña Spirit of offering is required just to be happy in life. Nāyaṁ loko styayajñasya. Yajñā, person in whose life the spirit of yajna is not there at all. Just a self-centered person who only is for himself or herself, for whom the interest and well-being of others is of no concern. So therefore that person there is going to be greed, there is going to be violence in one form or the other, it's going to be there. Which means that the person will keep on performing papa karma. Because selfishness is that which breeds all these negative impulses such as desire, indulgence, anger, greed. So the person's mind will be full of these things and conflicts. Therefore, one cannot enjoy what one has. Nāyaṁ loko styayajñasya. Yajñā, the one in whose life yajñā, the spirit of sacrifice, offering is not there at all. Even this worldly pleasures are not there. Kuto nyaḥ kuru-sattama. Then hey kuru-sattama, O most exalted among the kurus. Kurus were well known for performing yajñas. Hey, you are a descendant of kurus and an exalted descendant. Therefore, yajñā is something should be there in your life. Kuto-ña. How about the other world, which is moksha? When there is no hope for even the worldly pleasures, how can there be hope for moksha? Even heaven and moksha. So this is how the yajña, the spirit of offering, is extolled by Lord Krishna. A question may be asked here, that what Lord Krishna described in last few verses, dravya-yajñā, tapo-yajñā, yoga-yajñā, svādhyā-yajñā, jñāna-yajñā, pranayama-yajñā, etc., etc. These are not known as yajñas, at least to common person. So a question that is asked is that, oh Lord, is it your product of your mind that you call all these yajñas? Or do these kind of yajñas ever have a place in the scriptures also? Meaning that the yajñas that you described, do they have their source in the scriptures? Or simply something that you have imagined? No, this you cannot ask this question of Lord Krishna, but suppose somebody asks. Because in the Vedic culture, the Vedas are the supreme. Well, Lord Krishna also does not call him the supreme. He calls Vedas alone, scriptures as supreme. Urdhumulam, adashakam, ashwattham, ahuhu, ahuhu. They say that there is ashwattham, meaning referring to the Shruti, to the Upanishad. So Lord Krishna also does not claim the originality of this teaching. He is also happy to say that what he is teaching has its source in the Vedas. Sarvopanishado gavaha dogdha gopala nandana. If all the Upanishads can be compared to cows, then Lord Krishna is an expert cowherd boy milking the nectar of the Upanishads. Or as Bhashyakara says, Sarvedata Sara Sangraha Bhutaha, that not only Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita is the Sangraha, the collection of the essence of the entire Veda, karma-kanda as well as jnana-kanda and upasana-kanda, all kandas are included here. And so a simple question, O Lord Krishna, for our information, These yajñas that we describe, do they have their source in Vedas? Do Vedas also talk about this kind of yajñas? And to that, Lord Krishna describes, next verse, the first line is answer to this question, and second line is the benefit of the knowledge of these yajñas. So let us read the verse 32. evaṁ bahu-vidhā yajñāः vitatā brahmaṇo mukhe karma-jān viddhitān sarvān evaṁ jñātvā vimokṣhyase. evaṁ bahu-vidhā yajñāः vitatā brahmaṇo mukhe. Brahmaṇo mukhe, Brahma here means Veda. Brahmaṇo mukhe, Vedasya mukhe, Vedasya dvare. Meaning that evaṁ bahu-vidhā, bahu-prakaraha yajñāः. Hey Arjuna, the yajñā, various yajñas that are described and many more are vitatā, vistirṇā, brahmaṇo mukhe. What literally it means is that in the mouth of the Vedas, all these yajñas are spread. What it means is that these and similar yajñas are propounded by the Vedas. That's what it means. That these evaṁ, in this manner, bahu-vidhā yajñāः, yajñas or sacrifices of many kinds. Vitatā brahmaṇo mukhe, they are expounded in the Vedas. For example, in Aitareya Aranyaka, it said, vācahi pranam juhumah. We are offering prana, the vital air, in speech. The point is that when I am reciting something, at that time I cannot breathe, understand? When I recite something, even when I am talking also, at that time the breath stops. So when a person is performing svādhyaya yajña, let's say when he is reciting the Vedas, at that time he is restraining his breathing, allowing the speech to function. Vācahi pranam juhumah. We are offering the prana, the breathing into the speech. Where this is called yajña, where something is offered. So breathing is offered in the fire of recital. And similarly also when you are breathing, at that time you do not speak. So then you can say also that prana eva vācam, or in prana, the breathing, we are offering speech. And these and similar statements are there from where we realize that the spirit of yajña is described in Vedas in many, many places. evaṁ bahu-vidhā yajñāः vitatā brahmaṇo mukhe. In this manner, many kinds of yajñas also are expounded in the Vedas. Meaning that, Lord Krishna says that what I have said here has sanction of the scriptures. Because people may take up these instructions and follow them in their life as spiritual practices. Dravya-yajñā, tapo-yajñā, yoga-yajñā, svādhyā-yajñā, jñāna-yajñā, etc., etc. Pranayama-parayanaha. So these different yajñas that Lord Krishna described, they are all valid because they have sanctioned the scriptures. And therefore you may perform these and similar practices as spiritual practices in the spirit of the worship for antahakara shuddhi, purification of mind. Having said that, what is the result? What's the result of the knowledge of this? The second line Lord Krishna says, karma-jān viddhitān sarvān. Tan sarvān karma-jān viddhi. All these yajñas that are described, or all the yajñas that are described, are karma-jān. They are born of karma, meaning that they are of the nature of karma. So we note that some of the yajñas or practices Lord Krishna described are kājika, to be done at the level of body. Like offering charities, offering social service, etc. Vācika, like recital of the Vedas, etc., is vācika. At the level of prana, at the level of mind, when it comes to meditation, etc. So, karma-jān viddhitān sarvān. Arjuna, understand that all these yajñas, now Lord Krishna is saying that what is the benefit of this yajña is that it leads you further. This yajña or karma is not simply to keep you active all along or forever, but for you to transcend that. This karma itself can become the means of knowledge, as we said earlier. Karma-jān viddhitān sarvān. Tan sarvān yajñān karma-jān viddhi. Hey Arjuna, may you viddhi know or understand that all these yajñas or all these actions are all born of karma, meaning of this at the level of body, or the speech, or the mind. So karma-jān, anātma-jān, they are all born of anātma. Action performed at the level of physical level of speech, level of mind, all of this is anātma, non-self. So Arjuna, understand that all these yajñas, all these practices are born of anātma, non-self. Just understand that. Karma-jān viddhitān sarvān evaṁ jñātvā vimokṣhyase. Evaṁ jñātvā, knowing this, vimokṣhyase, you will be liberated. That these actions are all born of non-self, anātma. But it implies something. All the vyaparas, all the activities take place at the level of anātma, at the level of non-self. Meaning, all activities or actions take place at the level of body, or the speech, or the mind. We can call it the upadhi, the personality, anātma, non-self, the costume. Nirvyāpāro hi atma. So this ultimately, with the purification of mind, when the mind becomes contemplative, and of course with support of the teaching, these very actions also lead to knowledge by enabling me to appreciate that all the actions are at the level of anātma, non-self. What is the nature of Atma? What is the nature of self? What is my nature? Nirvyāpāro hi Atma. Atma is nirvyāpāraha. Devoid of all vyaparas, all activities, the Atma self is actionless. Evaṁ jñātvā vimokṣhyase. So, knowing all these actions is born of anātma means knowing that when all these actions are performed, Atma is actionless. Knowing the actionless Atma. How do you do that? Navad-vyāpārahi me nirvyāpāroham. All these actions are not done by me. Namad-vyāpārahi me. They are not my action, my activities. Nirvyāpāroham. When all these actions are taking place at the level of body or the speech or the mind, who am I? Nirvyāpāroham. Actionless I am. Udāsīnaha. Uninvolved, unconcerned, unconnected, unrelated, unaffected. Meaning that all the activities are taking place in my presence, where I remain unaffected by them, uninvolved in them. I remain ever asanga, unconnected to them. Udasyana, totally disinterested. Meaning that I abide in my own nature of actionlessness, of limitlessness. Meaning these actions do not in any way bring about any change in me. They do not bring about any change in Atma. They do not bring about any change or modification Atma in I. That means that they do not bring about any stress, any burden, any load, any unhappiness. They do not bring about any limitation. I remain abiding in my actionlessness, in my limitlessness, in my wholeness, in my completeness. Therefore, who am I? Nirvyaparoham. So Lord Krishna says that if time comes when, as a result of performing these activities, all these spiritual practices, the spirit of yajña, what is meant by purification of mind is that mind becomes slowly and slowly more and more tranquil, into inward looking, contemplative. Therefore, a contemplative mind is able to discern with the help of teaching. These very actions that help me in purification of my mind, they now help me in recognizing the true nature of myself. That now I am able to create a distance with them. I realize that it is not I who is performing the activities, that I am a very witness of these activities. Nirvyaparoham. The mind has become tranquil to appreciate the fact that even all vyapara, the activities are taking place at the level of body, at the level of speech, at the level of mind. I, the witness, the witnessing self, the blessing self, the present self is nirvyapara, actionless, ever abiding in my true nature, abiding in my wholeness, in my completeness. Which means that these actions become the means of the knowledge of the self. That's what Lord Krishna means. Karma-jān, viddhi. So the purpose of describing all this karma was karma-jān, viddhitān, sarvān. Recognize that all these actions are performed at the level of anatma. That is when the mind has become very tranquil and contemplative. When I am able to create a distance with my body-mind sense complex. When I am able to appreciate that actions are taking place at their level. And even when these actions are taking place, I appreciate the fact that nirvyaparo, I am a witness. I am the presence. I am actionless. I am ever free. So that way these actions become, in a way, the means of the knowledge of the self. Evaṁ jñātvā vimokṣhyase. Thus, knowing the nature of self is nirvyapara, actionless, meaning limitless. You are free, you are whole or complete, vimokṣhyase. You will become free from samsara, free from limitation, free from sorrow, meaning that you will abide in your nature of wholeness or completeness or ananda. So this is the purpose of describing all these yajñas. Is how the yajña, the karma, can become the means of knowledge. And now, as you said, this all discussion of yajña started from the verse 24, in which Lord Krishna described the vision of the wise person as jñāna-yajña. Yajña in the form of jnanam, or the knowledge. So now Lord Krishna wants to extol that jñāna-yajña. How we have to ultimately graduate to the jnana, from these yajñas we have to graduate into that jnana-yajña. All the yajñā that are described in these verses are meant to ultimately enable me to graduate into, to rise to grow into the jnana yajñā. So verse 33 says that Shreyan dravyamaya yajñāt jnāna-yajñah parantapa sarvam karma-akhilam partha jnāne parisamāpyate. Shreyan is the nominative singular of the word Shreyas. Shreyas means superior. Prashasya-taram. The word is prashasya, means that which is praiseworthy. Then comparative degree of prashasya is Shreyas, where prashasya is replaced by shra and then yas, the comparative pratyaya is added. Shra is Shreyas. Is comparative degree. Shrestha, superlative degree. So Shreyas, superior. Shreyan dravyamaya yajñāt. Dravyamaya yajñāt. Yajñāt compared to yajñā, the sacrifice, or as we said, the actions performed in the spirit of yajñā, which are dravyamayat, which all involve the offering of dravya, which involve all the dravya or material. You know very well that performing a traditional yajñā, you require various materials of offering. And similarly also the other action, dravya yajñā, require dravya, tapo yajñā, yoga yajñā, something or the other is always required. It may not be tangible material, but it may involve your mind, your body, your breath. So dravya means some tangible material is involved to be offered, which is what will make that action a yajñā. So all these yajñās are those in which some material is offered. Dravyamaya yajñā. So all these yajñā, which is dravyamaya, which involve the offering of dravya or some substance or material. Compared to that, jñāna-yajñah parantapa shreyan. The jñāna-yajña is superior. I mean, they are also good. Superior means they are good alright, but this is better. So jñāna-yajña is superior to them. Why is it so? Because no dravya or no material is required for jñāna-yajña. What is jñāna-yajña? Yajña of the nature of jnana or knowledge. If yajña means offering something, sacrificing something, whereas all those yajñas described earlier require one to offer some tangible thing. Here in jnana-yajña, nothing tangible is required to be offered. All that we require to offer is ignorance. In the fire of knowledge, what is offered is ignorance, or the various notions or complexes born of ignorance. As we discussed, what does ignorance do? Ignorance brings about the identification with the anatma, non-self. That brings about a sense of smallness, individuality called ego, who entertains variety of complexes, where each complex involves a sense of smallness and therefore a sense of sorrow or grief. So these are offered in the light of knowledge that I am Brahman, I am limitless, I am actionless. So this jnana-yajña involves offering of ignorance or the various notions born of ignorance in the fire of knowledge that I am Brahma. Brahma gnāva pare yajñam yajñenaiva upajuhvati, just discussed. that in the fire of the knowledge of Brahman, the notions born of ignorance are offered. So here no material is offered. So no result comes. The whole idea is that a dravyama yajñā, a yajñā involving dravya always brings about a result. So therefore, dravyama phalarambaka. Bhashyakara says, dravyama yajñā phalasya arambaka. Any yajñā or ritual performed with dravya always brings about a phala or a result. Even though the result may be of the nature of punya, virtue, still there is a result, which means that there is perpetuation of the cycle of birth and death. In that sense, this yajñā does not bring about karma phala at all. In fact, it brings an end to all the karma phalas. So in that sense, yajñā is superior to dravya yajñā. Shriyan dravyamaya yajñāt jñāna-yajñā parantapa. An ideal jnana-yajñā was described in the verse 24, which is the vision of the wise person. Shrestha, that's the most exalted yajñā. So these other yajñās or spiritual practices are described to highlight that jnana-yajñā, to extol the jnana-yajñā, or to help us understand that the purpose of all the other yajñās is that it should culminate into jnana-yajñā. That's why the second line of this verse says, sarvam karma akhilam partha jnane parisamāpyate. Hey Partha, hey Arjuna, sarvam akhilam karma, sarvam all, akhilam without leaving any residue, total, all the karma, all karmas in the totality. Jnane parisamāpyate. Parisamāpyate, they culminated into jnane, into knowledge. Here Arjuna, all the karma ultimately culminates into knowledge. So what this statement means, we'll continue to discuss in our next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.